Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's your brother Mufasa Mujadid Al-Hama'a. And this will be brief, inshallah. But you see the title. Ancient African names that are in the Quran. And be brief, I'll probably, sometime be showing some proofs of things, but I just want to go over some things right now. But before I do that one, I'll just briefly say this. Well, I won't even bring that up right now. We'll start right here. So, as is known, the ancient, what people want to call pygmies or the Twa and other forest hunter-gathering groups from the Great Lake regions and Cushites migrated all over. Okay, and I'll probably do another video on this going into the Quran and Hadith. But in history, we're told, that they, and it's a known fact that they migrated all over, particularly in the area of what nowadays we call Arabia and Yemen and those places, which, a lot of people leave out, was part of the land of Punt. Ancient Punt or punawet, what consisted of what we call today Yemen, Puntland in Somalia, parts of the Great Lakes region, right? And the groups that came from there, mainly the Twa and others, there's other hunter-gathering, they're called forest hunter-gathering groups, okay? And these forest hunter-gathering groups, who usually are small, okay, and they come from the Great Lakes region. It's been noted, even by Drusilla Dungy Houston, that the Cushites and the Twa, or the little people as it's called, dwelled in Arabia and Yemen. So when we look at that history, we understand that culture, when it goes somewhere, when people travel there or go other places, they bring the culture with them and words. Okay, and this is an important subject because when the white colonialists took over and started Egyptology, they wanted to separate Islam, or they wanted to separate the Quran from ancient African words, ancient African names, denoting places. So what we got to understand is, not all African nations, before I begin, not all African nations in their traditions of the beginning of creation narrate that people started off life in a garden, or people started off life in the forest. Okay? Only the forest hunter-gatherer nations or peoples narrate that in their creation stories. Agricultural or pastoral African nations, their beginning usually begins with, people being created and given cattle. And right when they're given cattle, they are made to till the soil. So they don't begin in a garden. They don't begin in a forest. Right? Only forest hunter-gathering nations, when their creation stories come about, regardless of the variety, they narrate life began in the garden. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to understand about ancient African tradition. In actuality, those two forms of life, often those cultures would clash in ancient times. It's even happening up to date, especially with the inclusion of Europeans in the mix. Okay, right now you can go to the Great Lakes region. The Twa, the Mbuti, and the Ba'aka or the Aka people, who are pygmies. They're being oppressed by what they call what we want to call the Bantu. People call the Bantu. But if you go amongst the Twa, if you go amongst the Baka, or the Aka, and you ask them what they call the Bantu, they call them Bilo. below. Okay, so those two things have to be recognized, and the reason why I have to put that out there is because when you start going into the Quran, when you start going into that history, you'll notice that there's two cultures that entwined. Okay, you have the forest hunter-gathering culture included in there, and you have the agriculture culture included in there, right? I'm not going to be showing on things right now. I'll probably be another video where I show that, but the reason why I'm talking about these areas is because when you go into this, you start to find out that even in some hadiths, even some Islamic tradition or narrations, you'll find out where it talks about the Nile Valley or the Nile River is sacred. And you'll talk about where it talks about Jannah meaning forests, the different rivers that come from the forest, So we even have those traditions in there, which nowadays, scholars don't even focus on. But it's in there, it's mentioned inside the books. And when you open up the Quran and you start reading about where man began, they mention the gardens. They mention, which is the forest. Okay? That's the forest culture. Forest hunter-gatherer culture. So, with that, we're going to go into this. Now, like I said, the word Yemen. Now, we'll start with the word Yemen. The word Yemen originally comes from the word Amen. And everyone knows that Yemen, in ancient times, well, people that do their research, which is being excluded nowadays, as I said, the modern Egyptology and some black professors that come from that will exclude Yemen from being part of punawet. But all you have to do, you go look up what the ancient Egyptians or Kemetians said that they come from. They come from punawet, okay? And punawet is known for what? It's myrrh and frankincense. Matter of fact, myrrh is one of the main ingredients used in order to embalm the saba or the mummies. Okay, so if you go look up now Yemen, which is one of the regions of Punt, besides the Great Lakes region, besides Somali, an area of Somalia called Puntland. Nowadays, that's reduced down to being called Puntland. Even Eritrea, nowadays Eritrea, and Yemen. People forget about that, and they purposely want to. You look up Yemen, and you'll find out that myrrh and frankincense is grown from there, from the trees there. Okay, so that's how you know the areas where Punt was at. It was one of the main geographical, things that were grown. Okay, so we're saying that you got to understand that Yemen is nowadays what we call southern Arabia. Okay, and it's narrated in the traditions from there that those in northern Arabia, not talking about today, the light skin or white Caucasian, but there are still, black skin, quote unquote, if you want to call Arabs or whatever, still there to this day. Okay, originate from the Yemen, and then they came into the north of Arabia. And it's this document known, even in the Quran, it mentions the story of Saba, how the dam broke, and then they migrated out. Okay, so it even mentions in there. Priscilla Dungy Houston also mentions that in her book, Wonderful Kushite Empire, right, Ethiopia. So I want to drop some words on you real quick, and then I'll probably do another video on just basically breaking down some proofs. First thing we're going to talk about is the Twa and the Sem priesthood. Okay, because this is very important. A lot of people don't understand that when you say the name Allah, it just means the deity. All right, and even among the Muslims of today, there's a division as to if Allah is a personal name or if Allah is just a description. It's just saying Allah, the deity. Okay. After you say the name Allah, you would have to then put a description. You see what I'm saying? To describe what you're saying about Allah, the deity, what? And so the Quran does that. It says Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the most gracious, the most merciful, etc. like that. But one of the names a lot of people fail to realize is the name fattah. Now, modern day Egyptology, and then some black professors that came from there, they pronounce it as fattah. But it says very side in the Quran, Allah is al-fattah, fattah, which means to open, whether it be provisions from the heavens, provisions from the earth, like the grass and the fruits, or be the rain from the sky. Those are called rizq. Those are called provisions. And fattah, the name fattah is connected to that, the opener of things. Okay, even your knowledge, when you don't know nothing or you don't know something, and then you start to come to understanding, that's called the element of fattah. It's opening up to you. Okay, so the word fattah is all encompassing, right? It deals with everything. And then al-fattah is the one who is causing the opening. Okay, and it says Allah, the deity, is al-fattah, right? The reason why that's important is because I got my little notes. All right. That word opener is also connected to another word, ilm, which is knowledge, as I said. And if you go to ancient Egypt, when you deal with the Sim priesthood, right? You're dealing with the Twa. That word Sim, right? That word Sim, which is also connected to the word. Well, I'm not gonna go there. Okay. Well, okay. Hold up. So I get it right. I don't want to missay what I put down here, right? But the Sim priesthood, the word Sim inside the Quran means the heavens. Okay, Sim, Sama'a, right? Sim means to be anointed. Okay, something that's anointed, right? Anointed to understand what? Knowledge of the heavens. Okay, so when we get into that, we understand that the Twa who migrated from the forest hunter-gatherer culture, they had knowledges of the forest. They had knowledge of the heavens. They had knowledge of medicine. Okay, and when they got into Egypt, the priest named An, okay, some of the same priests, the word An was connected. And all these words interconnect. Okay, the word An, which became, of course, connected to the word papyrus or Ani, or when you go to ancient, what they want to call Sumeria, Anunnaki, right? And that also deals with another African word connected with that, Ngai, which becomes known as Inki. Okay, and you can go look up Ngai, Ngai, and you'll find many African tribes worshiping Ngai. Okay, so those two cultures mixed over there. But when you go, okay, let's go back to the word fattah. Now, fattah is often dealing with knowledge and is dealing with the opening up of the heavens or provision, right? So we also have that word sim, the word sim, okay? And the word, this is where, like I said, the word sim is the word sama'a, heavens, okay? Because even in ancient Egypt, the Sim priesthood had knowledge of the heavens, and they would worship a deity named Fattah, the opener. So we have that inside the Quran, Al-Fattah. So when you want to look for an ancient name of Allah, beyond Egypt or before Egypt, the word is Al-Fattah. The same thing, and that goes back to the Great Lakes region, and that goes into another name that's also connected with the word Sim, and that's the word Bis. Bis. We say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bis. Well, Bis is Ba and Sin. You've probably heard that, Ba and Sin. Basim. Okay? So when you have the word Bis, it's also composed, it goes onward to another word, which is Sim, but if you put Ba and the Sim together, it's Basim, the smiling one. And the thing about it is all of that way is interconnected because the ancient Twa who worship Fattah, Okay. They also, a name with fattah was Bes or Bis. Okay. And Bis is seen with his mouth open like this. Right. Sometimes the tongue is hanging out. It's time to smile. Okay. But also synonymously, Bis also can mean a hunter, a person that kills this prey. And why? Because that deals with provision. That deals with what we call razak, provision, risk. Okay, so bis in itself deals with risk, provision. Sim or sama, the heavens, deals with provision. So when you're saying Bismillah, bis in itself is an ancient word, and bis itself is an ancient name of the Creator, as well as fattah. That's why you can't, even inside the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, you can't say nothing, you can't do nothing without saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. But this time you say bis, and then you say Allah, or Bismillah, because they mean right there, the bism. Okay? If you listen to it close and if you look at it, that's another way that you can say it, basim. Allah is, connected with that. So the concepts are interlocking with each other from how we say it to the ancient times. In the Phoenician so-called language, Yabasum. Okay, you can go look up an island called Yabasum. Okay, and Bism, and Bis, and Basim. Okay, in Arabic, right? So the word Sim is interconnected with the skies. The word fattah is interconnected with the opening of knowledge from the heavens or sustenance. All right. The word bis is connected with hunting because it is Allah that gives you the provision. And if you go in the ancient forest hunter-gathering cultures of the Great Lakes region, where the Twa originate out of, you'll find out when they dwell in the forest, the animals are there as a provision. They just go out and they hunt and get it. And this is where originally also coming up out of there, nomadic life came from. Okay, the love to hunt and the love to travel. And this was also where the words they had a name for. Some of the groups had a name for the Creator named Arabati. Okay, Arabati for the word Arab, and Arabati meant Lord. And we say, if you go look at a certain words in Arabic, and you ask them what Arab means, they'll tell you what Rabba. Many of these words came for Arab. Some will say means Lord or Master, right? Because the word Rabb is what? Lord, right? It came from the word Arab. It's interconnected, is what I'm saying. So you have in Hebrew the word came. You had the word Rabbi or Rabbah, right? Rabbi, which is a teacher. So knowledge is dealing with that. Rabbah, they say Rabboni, right? Teacher. And in Arabic it's Rabbi, or Rabbil Alameen, now we say, right? So Rabbah meaning Lord, and Arab means to, in Hebrew, means to cross over, to travel. So the reason why it has that connotation is because when you go back to the Great Lakes region, right, the people who call upon Arabati are forest, hunter, gathering culture. See, words, even inside the Quran, it tells us. Some people are like, oh, brother, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not strictly talking about Arabic. I'm talking about the history of the word, how it came down into Arabic, okay, in the land, all right? And some of it started there in a certain region of Punt, which is modern-day Yemen. So you have the word fattah, which means the opening. In ancient times, in Egypt, fattah is the creator, okay? You have the word sim. So like we say, sama'ah, the heavens. Well, sim then was a sim priesthood, right? And that meant that person, when they were called a sim priesthood, they was anointed to have knowledge. They have knowledge of the heavens, right? And it's basically the same with, how we see the word sim, sama'ah, the heavens. And along with that, they came from the culture, forest hunter-gatherer culture, that looks upon these things provided as provisions, right? So, And then from that, along with that word, you have the word basim. Basim. If you look up in the Quran, basim is associated with Suleiman. And a lot of people don't say that word basim actually deals with, depending on how you use it, deals with also either a creative aspect or a fertility aspect. Okay, so in the forest hunter-gatherer culture, when you say basim, what we would call basim or bis, okay, bis, like we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, bism, right, or basim, right. When you got with your wife, and you would say the bis, okay, this means fertility, but the underlying meaning of bis is happy and joyous, merriment. Even if it meant hunting. Even if it meant hunting the provision, killing the provision. All right? And so we have this. We have bis, or some people pronounce it, egyptologists pronounce it as bes. Okay? Bes is connected with the older form of calling upon fattah. And fattah is connected with a people who are called the Sem priesthood. And the Sem priesthood, one of them are called An, and An means the heavens, or knowledge of the heavens. Okay? So all those concepts are in the word inside the Quran with bis, or Sem, Sama'a, the heavens, or Bismillah. You know, you can't do a thing or say a thing without saying Bismillah, because there's the blessing in it. There's the providence in it. Provision in it. Right? So Fattah is an ancient African name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, Allah has many attributes. Right? And that originates from the specific people of the Twa, right? Now, if we remember inside the Quran, we go look it up. Allah says what? He says, we created you into different peoples and tribes. And then he says inside the Quran also, in another place, he says, I made you in your languages. The diverse, he said, verily there are signs in your colors and in your languages for those who reflect. So Allah is not just the creator of, we don't just call upon Allah in the Arabic. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He is the maker of all the languages. See? So that means Allah has an attribute in every language. Now, in ancient times, they divided along those who would describe it in a polytheistic aspect and those who would call it upon it in a monotheistic aspect. So you would have to do your research. If you was really into that, you would have to do your research past it to see the different, some people want to call them mystery schools. It's not really a mystery, but the different schools and how they call upon the deity in order to find out, is this one a polytheistic or is this one a monotheist? But they would be both using the same words. Hold on for a second. So we have that aspect of Fattah. We have that aspect of Fattah linking with the concept of bis. Bis linking with the concept of basim. And like we said, Fattah is the opener of knowledge, the opener of to victory. So that deals with also when you're hunting for your provision, Allah opens up the fat. He opens up the victory. Okay, so that word fat is connected to the word Fattah. Right? Fattah. You go to ancient Egypt, but nowadays the Egyptologists try to pronounce it as Pataha, but it's Fattah, right? So that's one of Allah's ancient names. Another name that we have, and the word Jannah. The Jannah is the forest. So when you're dealing with the beginning of our life, as I said at the very beginning, any story, any history that starts off with Jannah or forest, you're dealing with a forest hunter-gathering culture, which is the oldest. Okay, many African stories and variety start off with forest. They start up in the garden, they start off in the forest or the jungle or the however name you want to put to it, and then they migrate out of it. And there are many African traditions, a variety of life starting in the garden and then coming out of it, right? So that's a forest hunting gathering people, which the Twa in ancient Africa are, and today the Mbuti are in the Great Lakes region. And I'll say this again. We also have a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he mentions that the Nile River, because the Nile River goes into the Great Lakes. Okay, the Nile River is a river from Jannah. This world's Jannah that we first started in, which was the forest in the Great Lakes region. The Nile River is one of the rivers from Jannah. Okay, and then some hadiths mention that there's 4 rivers from Jannah. Right, and then so I think I'll do another video and I'll put all these things in the order and more perspective. But right now I'm just throwing it out there because we have to understand these places are actually sacred to us. You know, in ancient times, I'm talking about the ancient Islam. You see, we have to understand, make a further connection into more deeper Africa. Okay, and Allah's name's deeper into Africa. So, and this is a benefit because then you'll be able to talk to, you know, some of the kemetic people that want to, you know, the modern kemetic movement that started after the egyptologists. They invented Egyptology. You can start showing them these things, but first we have to get them in perspective. So that's one thing we have. We have fattah, we have the word Jannah. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that because I have to show you some things. But even the word kufr, let's talk about kafir. In the Quran, and I'll show you this. I will do another video on it. Kafir, although a certain instance means ungrateful, but when you go to the meaning of kafir, for real, when you're dealing with ancient historical, where we begin from, okay? When you look at the word kafir, what does it mean? Let's look at it. It means what? You've heard it all the time. A person who plants a seed, right? And cover it up. But no one connects it that this word originally is talking about the beginning of how we lived, or a stage after how we live. Okay, for example, look at this. If you go type in forest hunter gathering, get familiar with this. Forest hunter gathering peoples, and then type in the Great Lakes. All right. Then type in pastoralist, or type in agriculture. Okay. You'll find out that our beginning, according to science, was forest hunter gathering first. This in the Quran, so the Quran's telling us ancient history that a lot of people are not catching on to. Forest hunter gathering culture first. The Quran says what? Jannah. We came up out of the gardens. We was in the gardens. Then we left. Okay. Now what's another word they use? The word kafir. Who was the first? Who was those who became among the kafir? Iblis. It says he became among the kafirin. Right? When he rejected Adam alayhi salam, right? But kafirin means what? At its root. What does kafirin mean? It means agriculture. You can sometimes link it with pastoral agriculture or farmers. As a matter of fact, there's a place in the Quran, and I don't got the ayat. The word kafirin means farmer, one who plants a seed, a tiller. So at first we were forest hunter gathering, i.e. Jannah, in the Great Lakes region. Then some of us came out of it, or people came out of it, and some became agriculturals, pastoral agriculturals, meaning they have their cattle, they have their cow, or they plant the seed into the dirt and let it sprout. They became farmers. Okay? And then some didn't do that. Some came out of the forest hunting gathering and they became what you call nomads. They kept up their lifestyle of hunting and gathering and traveling, moving one place to another. Because when you look up forest hunter gathering culture, in the forest everything is provided. Your fruits are there, and this is called the rizaq. This is called the providence. Okay? The forest has the fruits growing there already. You just pick it, and it has the meat there. It has the animals there. You just go out and hunt it right there. It's provided for you, and you eat. And most forest hunter-gatherer cultures in the Great Lakes region, after they stay at a certain place for a little bit, they pack their stuff up and they keep moving. Okay, so you take away the forest, and you take the understanding of hunting and traveling. That's nomadism. Okay, they became nomadic, which in the Hebrew and in the Arabic, some of it is the word Iber. You hear this word Iber, or Abir, or Abar, right? Iber means to cross over, travel. He became a Hebrew. Okay, Hebrews or nomadism from the Great Lakes region is that their ancient tradition is coming out of the garden, because their ancestors used to be forest hunter-gathering people, and they used to dwell in the jana, but they don't no longer dwell in the jana, but they kept that lifestyle sort of. So that's where you get the word Arab, because one of the meanings of the word Arab, people keep disputing it, but one of the meanings, when you get deep down, one of the meanings Arab, the word Arab and the word Eber or Abir, Eber, all of those are the same thing, Abara, Ibara. Okay, it means traveling, crossing over. But synonymously, it also connected to an ancient African word where the Great Lakes region people came from. Some of the groups called upon Arabati. And hence the word Arab means also Lord or Rabba, right? We say it in Arabic. And we say it commonly in our fattah when we say Rabbil Alameen. See? So all these languages are interconnected, and concepts are interconnected. And so we have to understand when we travel there. Another word. So we come from the jana. Now the one thing about the geography of the mountains, in the Great Lakes region, you have high mountains. So heavens is synonymous with mountains. Okay, you can go. There's places in Africa, in the Great Lakes region. You go into the mountains, you're above the clouds. You actually literally are above the clouds. You live there, right? So, Jabal, we said in Arabic Jabal, which is mountain, right? Is synonymous with the heavens, Sama'a, and this is why we also have the ancient tradition of prophets. For some reason, they go up into the mountains and they receive what? Revelation from, right? The heavens. And it comes out within themselves, a wahi. It's an ancient tradition. Ancient African concept. Right? So there's that word. So we have the word fattah. We have the word bis. We have the word bis becoming ba and sim. You know, ba and basim, I keep saying, but it becomes a word basim, okay? But you have also the word just by itself, it can break off sim, okay? And there's history to that. And you have the word by itself that can be just bis, without the meme. And that has an ancient historical context. But the cool thing about it, the further back you go into Africa and ancient history in the Great Lakes region, all those words interconnect with each other and give you a concepts of interlocking. So, also another word. So we got the word fattah. That's an ancient African name for what we're saying Allah now, the deity in Arabic, but an ancient name is al-fattah. One thing about the Quran corrects things though. So you got to understand something that happened in ancient times. In ancient times, people were saying these words, but some went more of a polytheistic aspect of the word, and some had a monotheistic aspect of the word. So the Quran corrects all that. See, it gives us it purifies it. You know, these are the monotheistic aspects of the words, pure, completely. Okay, so the Quran is indeed, you know, an overseer more than just the Torah or the Gospels. It's an overseer of all ancient history and concepts. Alhamdulillah bil alamin. I wrote down right here. Okay, so I wrote right here. I don't know if you can understand my scratch right there. That's my scratch. Yeah, you can't understand my scratch. I was scratching real quick. But, okay, Arabati. So that's the first word. The word like Baba, Abba, like they start changing into the word father in Hebrew. The word Abu. The word Ibe in Oromo. The word Rabah in Arabic. The word Rabbi in Hebrew. The word Rabil, now we say Rabil, and the word Al-Arab. All of those are interconnected. And all of those words are in origin come from what they now want to term pygmies, but more so the forest hunter-gathering cultures, or what we call the Twa. Those concepts and words originated out of there from the Great Lakes region, which in our hadith, it does talk about the Nile rivers being sacred coming out of the Jannah, a paradise. And you can find one of the hadiths when it talks about the night journey, but that's not the one that really goes into it. That there's other hadiths that talk about that, right? So I guess this is a good time to just throw this in there before I continue. So the word in Arabic, seen, we're dealing with seen, which is part of the word sim, right? Sim, sama, the heavens. The word seen, in the Phoenician dialect of the Sim, what they call the Sim languages, the seen and the sheen was just one word. There was no seen and just sheen. There was no sheen. I mean, it was just seen. And then when it came to Arabic, it wanted to describe more in depth, so it split seen into sheen. But in actuality, when you go back more in ancient African history, the sheen and the seen are synonymous. Okay, and the reason why that's very important to understand is because that seen right there is connected to the word sim. Okay, for the priesthood of sim, right? And that gets into the whole thing when you talk about Shadraja, the tree. Okay, we'll get into that some other time. Shadraja, the tree, because Shadraja, which is sheen, actually originally was seen. So that tree has an origin, and you go even into ancient Egypt when they talk about the Shadraja. We said in Arabic Shadraja, but that scene right there actually becomes what they call what you want to call a hieroglyph, but a metanet, a letter or a symbol, and the symbol is called a dejeti, a dejet, and the dejet looks like it. When you look at it, it looks like a tree type thing, right? But here's the thing: that dejet inside ancient Egypt is connected to the word fattah, which we come back now. So it even correlates inside the Quran. The word seen is connected with sama, the heavens, right? And Allah is called al-Fattah, who opens up the provision from the heavens. Okay? And in ancient Africa, when you go to the, which people is it? I keep forgetting the then guy. Well, another aspect I have to add that, but it goes back to the word and I forget specifically what African nation deals with and, but they go back to the Great Lakes region originally too, and and's a concept from there which synonymously becomes linked with seen too, which means heavens. Okay, Sama'a, which means heavens, and that word and ends up into what we started calling Sumeria. All right, but that's why I was bringing it up, because the word and, the Twa was one of the priests had a connection with that word and. Okay, and meant the heavens, knowledge of the heavens, and so the same Twa who were the Sim priests spoke about and, which is knowledge of the heavens. So it's all interlocked. All them words are interlocked and linked. Another word. Well, I mentioned Yemen. Now, Yemen originally comes from the word Amen. And a lot of people don't understand that Amen is a name that we as believers are called. I'll get there for you in a second. What's the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So now we have Fattah. And we have what? We have the words Al-Mumin, and we have the words Al-Muhaymin. Okay? And Al-Muhaymin, you got to understand something about words. Words are expression of the roots. So you have a root word, okay? And then depending on the specific description that you want to give about the root that came before, how you want it to express in a specific form about something, you say the word that is formed from it, right? So the word is Amen, okay? In Arabic, the word Amen, the root word is Amen. But the expression, what are we talking about Amen? Okay, Amen means what? Security. Amen also has an aspect of unseen, right? Because why? Amen, the word Iman comes from the word Amen. Iman, right, is something unseen. It's something in your heart, your call, your faith. So the aspect of unseen, right? From the word Amen comes the word Muhaymin. Al-Muhaymin. Allah is Al-Muhaymin, which means what? The protector. He protects what? Things, protects you from things that you know of, and protects you from things what? You don't know of, the unseen. Right? So Al-Muhaymin. Then Allah is called Al-Mumin. the word mu'min comes from the word amen. The root word of mu'min is amen. Okay? So the believer, the mu'min, the ones who secure with his faith, right? Hold on, switch it around. Is named as amen, or excuse me, mu'min. And Allah's al-mu'min, Allah's the secure. Right? Allah's al-mu'min, the secure. And we become mu'min, we become secure in our deen. Right? And this has a hidden aspect in our qalb, in our heart. You know, the more you practice, the more your mind follows your heart. And your heart becomes solidified because what you recite from your mouth, now listen to this, the aspect of reciting from the mouth, to open. That's another word I forgot to tell you. Fattah means to open. So when you open and you recite, you say these words, right? You open and you recite. That's an aspect of fattah, you're opening. And even in ancient Egypt, they had what they call the opening ceremony. You're reciting the words, right? And you go to, like I said, bis, which was an old name for fattah, right? Bis meant, you look at bis, or what they call best, his mouth is open like this. And some pictures he has his tongue out, which means he speaks the words of greatness. Okay? So, but going back to al-mu'min. So Allah's al-mu'min. The root word is amen. Allah's al-muhaymin. The root word is amen. The word iman. The root word is amen. All of those having an aspect dealing with something that's hidden. Right? So al-mu'minin, it deals with amen. Something that's hidden in your heart. Something that's in your heart. You're secure. Your security with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah's al-mu'min. He's secure. He's the one that gives you security. He's the one that makes you feel secure. So Allah's al-fatah. In ancient Egypt they said fatah. Allah's, the root word is amen. But the Quran is so deep that it takes these words that is used in the cultures and it multiplies them more in many different aspects. That's the beauty of the Quran. And it purifies, it gives you a purified aspect of the words. You see? So you can share these things with a person that's on kemetism, because here's point number one. Egyptology was formed. They dug in graves. They dug up bodies of pharaohs and everything else just to get the gold that was buried. They set up universities and schools. And then some black educated became elite in that. And, they were Masons and stuff like that. And then they took some of what Egyptology said, but they did furthermore investigation. Unfortunately, they tried to divorce Islam or divorce the Quran from its connection with the ancient Egyptian culture, or I don't want to say the culture, but, because it goes beyond Egypt. My whole point. It goes back to the Great Lakes region. Okay, it goes back to the Jannah. It goes back to the gardens. It goes back to the forest hunter-gathering cultures. Okay, and Allah says inside the Quran that He made the different languages. Okay, so when you call upon Allah, in Arabic we say Allah, but Fatah in itself is an ancient name. Amen is an ancient name. You see, and Bis, which can become Basim. And like I pointed out, Sim becomes Sama'ah, heavens. All those concepts interlocking with each other are an ancient African concept from the Great Lakes region. And if you, and like I said, you can go look up forest hunter-gathering cultures, and then you go look up pastoral farmer cultures or agriculture, and it's right here inside the Quran. It tells you started in the forest. It tells you started in the Jannah. And then it says that the shaitan became one of the kafirin. We know that the root word, we know that kafir originally means as an agriculturalist. Okay, one who plants the seed. in the soil. Okay, so that was the change of life throughout history. So the Quran is not just telling us something that just happened somewhere. It's actually talking about how ancient life unfolded. Okay, then when you get Baqarah, or you start getting cattle mentioned, right? That is going back to pastoral lifestyle living. So the Quran, you'll find, has 3 phases in it. Has the Jannah, or the forest hunting gathering phase of history, ancient African history. Then it has the agricultural, or the farming, where you plant the seeds. And for some reason, this is looked upon as I'm being careful here. Originally, is looked upon at first as something low. Why? Because you in the forest hunting gathering, or in the Jannah, in the gardens, in the forest, provision, razak, or as I said, the ancient word is what? Bis. Provision was provided for you. You go there, you pick the fruit. You don't have to till nothing really. You go there, your animal's already there. You just hunt it, you get it. So that's relying heavily upon all the provision that razak is already given, or the sim, right? The an. It's given. But when you don't rely on the times like that Allah's giving you, and you start going into history, and you start transitioning up out of the forest, up out of the garden, you become what? You don't become that grateful to Allah. You're ungrateful to Allah. Why? Because now you're taking the seeds, right? You leave the forest life, you come to the seeds, and you're planting it for yourself. And matter of fact, there's a stigma today among the forest hunting gathering FTAH in the Great Lakes region, and what we call Bantu nowadays. Some people call Bantu, the FTAH called Bilo. Okay, the Bilo say these FTAH, or Batwa they call them. These FTAH are lazy. Call them lazy. Say these FTAH are lazy. They don't like to till the soil. They don't like to work. And the FTAH says about the Bantu, they say these are people who are ungrateful. These are people that don't rely on the forest. These are people that don't rely on the providence of the fattah or the bis. You don't rely on it. Or the arabati, whichever word they choose. They also have a word named Torah. We're not going to get into the word Torah. That's something else. But how it became the word teachings. Okay. But Torah originally, is one of the cycles, or connected to the cycles of the forest. And when you learn that, it teaches you. That's a whole different thing, right? Some connected to the Creator itself. So different forest hunter gathering cultures switch among those names: Arabati, Tori. Let's see. What's the name? Qanun. You find that word, it ended up in Egypt too. Qanun. But that has an aspect dealing with exactly forming and shaping man, right? Forming and shaping man and women on the potter's wheel, which pottery is known for the FTAH. They're known to have pottery. To them, that symbolizes being created from the earth. I could get into other stuff like, the blacks and the reds and the whites and different things like that. But it's not necessary. But here's what I will get into. The agricultural farm Bantu have a problem with the forest hunter gatherer, right? So they oppress them to this day, even more so. Although that's our original way of life, but not according to the agriculturalists. According to agriculturalists, when the Creator created, there was no Jannah. There was none. So saying that African nations have the same creation story is not true. The agricultural story is, or agricultural farmer story is that the Creator created us, and along with us, He created the cows. And whoever had the cows to till the soil, help till the soil, were the blessed ones, were the chosen ones. Right? And they actually have a story where the Creator created 3 people. There's one of them. Created the Twa. Um, Created the agriculturalists, and the test was milk. We'll get in that some other time. But I think I'll provide some Quran ID for the stuff that I say that you can see it, inshallah. So yeah, we have Muhammad, and we have Fattah, and we have Al-Mumin. The word Yemen originates from the word Amen. And Yemen actually, in ancient times, though some want to deny it, was one of the regions of what they call Punt, or punawet, which was known, like I said, for having myrrh and frankincense. And myrrh is one of the ingredients that is used to mummify, right? Mummify. So that's very important, because the Cometians, those who are into kemetic science, and let me tell you about kemetic science. It's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of Egyptology, and some of them don't want to admit it. But their scholars, the scholars that they revere, a lot of them, I should say, originate about from the colleges that the Egyptologists had established. So they take away some of that concept, and that's why they have a issue with Islam for the main part. But what they don't realize is that Islam, plenty of Muslims, especially African Muslims, had already deciphered the metanetta, which was just really for really the ignorant, the ones that didn't know the letters, writings. Because a lot of people don't know that each pharaoh, even before the pharaohs, most people looked down how you were born. The people who were born on the same date, and this just briefly, I'm just throwing this out there. People that was born on the same date, all them people had their own alphabet, their own writings according to the time that they was born. So that's why you find like the Greeks and them and stuff like that. They be talking about the people of Aries and the people of Venus and the people of, because actually these people who were born on date, the priest class of them had an alphabet for them. Okay, it's called. They had something to do with spirituality. This is your spiritual alphabet, and then you have your common alphabet. That's something else. But in any case, so I just wanted to point out Al-Muhammad. I want to point it out. Al-Mumin, connected to the word Amen. So if you got to talk Commission, you let them know. Listen, us as Muslims, we had metanetta and ancient stuff already deciphered. Egyptologists came and they were robbing graves, and then they resurrected these schools that some of your scholars go to, and you have audacity to talk bad against the Quran and Islam, and it's right here. We have it right here. Except we are able to go more in depth and detail on the word. And a person gets good enough, you'll be able to go to certain walls if you wanted to do that and actually read and decipher. Khidr, the green one, people link that with the ancient Asar, the green one on the throne. Now I'm not gonna sit there and say that that's what it is, but when you compare a lot of stuff, it seems to come out like that. Allahu Alam. But for a fact, Fattah, Al-Fattah, the root word fattah, for fact, Al-Muhammad and Al-Mumin. Al-Muhammad and Al-Mumin goes back to the root word Amen. Even the word Iman comes from the word Amen. So Al-Muhammad, Al-Mu'minin, we have the word Amen in us. See? And in ancient Egypt, they had those who were Septepum Ra, what they wanted to say Ra, but you had the chosen of Amen. And we already know what that is. We say it all the time. If you have confidence and you're secure in your Iman, that's how you're chosen in Amen. Right? By the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Fattah. By the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Muhammad. By the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Mu'min. Right? So, my point in putting this here briefly is that even if you talk to people who deal with modern Egyptology, Commission, anti-Islam, the Quran came way before any of your scholars. The Quran came way before any of your schools. And works have already been produced. Even with, like we talk about Dhul Nun, who was Nubian. Many say he was a Sufi. Um, you know, he had understanding of the ancient, glyphs, right? Um, Ancient Yemen, its animals and its myrrh and its frankincense connected to punawet. Priscilla Dungy Houston, she mentions in there that the Twa, even, and I found this, the Baka, Baka, the first place of worship was at Baka. You know that ayat? The first place of worship was at Baka. Okay? Not all pygmy groups are the Twa. A lot of people think all the pygmy short people are the Twa. That's not true. Although many today kemetic people will say that, that's just not true. You have the Baka, you have the Twa, you have many the Mbuti, many pygmy groups, so-called pygmy groups. I don't even like calling them as disrespectful. But forest hunter gathering culture people, that's what you call it, that are small. And they did dwell in Mecca, and they did dwell in Medina, and they did dwell in Yemen. Facts. And so the names are there. And so when a person tries to say the Quran's not connected to history, ancient African history, they don't know what they're talking about. They just don't know what they're talking about. Even Sheikh Anta Diop, who was a Muslim, he was one of the first that brought forth about ancient Egypt. But no, it seems like that goes over the head because of the way certain people were trained to think, in the ancient kemetic or, beliefs. They seem to gloss right over that. The books he wrote on ancient Africa, and he wrote on about Egypt. So last but not least, I'll close out. I think I'm going to close out with that. But yeah, that word El-Rabati, went through phases. Baba, from that became Rabba, Rabbi, Al-Arab, Abu, Ibe, in various words. The word Bis, which they pronounce Bes. Even in so-called Phoenician Yabasim, they even have an island named after Bis or Bes, right? But all that stuff is interconnected. Fattah, Bis, Sama, Sin. Sin goes back to a certain letter in the ancient, even in the ancient Egypt, that looks like a tree, and is actually a symbol for Fattah. So, it's called Dejet. Some say Dejeti. Okay. So, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. I had to put this out there because, let me see. Let me read this real quick. Oh, and I'm going to give a little extra real quick. So, we know that in ancient Egypt, they have the story of Asar. The story where, he got broken to several pieces, and then his wife put him back together again, and then he conceived, she conceived of Heru. I believe it's Heru. Horus. Right? Well, that goes back to the Ifi Mbuti. As I was studying, and I was looking for, just this thing, Islam and ancient Africa and stuff like that, and, looking at some of the old languages and looking at some of the old words and some of the roots in the Arabic and in the history, agriculture and looking up forest hunting, gathering, history and stuff, because it says we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ancient. And so, but it seems like a lot of us as Muslims, we get stuck in just Arabic. But we never look at the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to his African root. Right? So I went on, I said, you know what, I'm going to go and dig up the roots. I'm going to look at the roots, even Jannah, even, saying where it travels. And then when, I came up on the hadith of the Prophet when I read it, actually, and then I heard somebody say, I said, oh, there it is right there. The Great Lakes region is right there. We talk about the river that things come from. It's right there. right? So alhamdulillah, know that it's sacred. And also, last but not least, so there's two letters, and I'm gonna after this I'm gonna go ahead. Let me read this real quick. Okay, hold on. Ifim Madudi, it says Mekbi. It says that's the word for soul. Now listen to this. The Megbi in the Great Lakes region, and this has come from the Ifi, the Mbuti people. It becomes the soul is in 7 parts, and it becomes scattered when you die. The person has to do a fattah, he has to do the opening of mouth ceremony, where his father died. He places his mouth over his father and inhales, and he gets part of the soul. The second part enters into the dead body's personal totem, meaning a certain animal that they're connected with as far as energy is concerned, right? And that becomes part of the animal. And then the forest leper, he said, and the other parts go elsewhere, right? But when it all connects back together, though, it mentions that it all comes back together. So I knew from there, just reading that because the Twa had been in ancient Egypt, and they have the story of Asar shattered into 7 pieces, dying, and then they have a thing called the open mouth ceremony. I said, okay, there it is right there, right? So that was something that I looked at, so I just wanted to throw that out there for those who talk about, Asar and the shattering 7 pieces and stuff like that. Another thing in Islam we got is tekens. The tekens, before they started making it about fertility, the tekens were actually used, them big long things in the sand, those are used to tell time. And this is what we get inside our hadith, the ancient African practice, when we're walking and the Sahaba would put the stick into the ground to tell time. The sun would shine down on it, and you could tell time about when Dhuhr and Asr. Well, that's what the tekens were for. At first, originally, they built the tekens for a time telling. It's a long, solid structure stuck into the ground, and the sun would shine on it, and they could tell what time it was. So that's an ancient African practice in our hadith. Besides the word dua fattah, people were named dua fattah. Excuse me. People were named dua fattah, and that, dua fattah is asking for, the provision from the heavens. So we already know what that is in Arabic. Let's see. I wrote it down. But alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. I say Allah, shouldn't be. So yeah, that's about it. Alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. And so when you talk to some people, maybe run by, do your own research on the things I put out there, inshallah, and we can build this bridge and utilize it to give dawah, so that people can understand that this deen, it doesn't, whatever way you try to come at it, there's no way of fading it. It's just no way. You can't fade the deen. It always will have something. You dig, it'll give up its treasures. Alhamdulillah, which goes back to the word fattah. It'll open up its treasure. Allah will open up the treasures of the deen. So here's what I'm going to leave you with. Understand this, that before there was Egyptology, before there was these modern scholars and kemetic movement and all of that, there was the Quran. So, and Yemen is part of ancient Punt, which in ancient Egyptian, they say they originate from. Now, there's different regions of Punt, right? So, the point is, the culture that came from the Twa and other short people that used to live in Yemen, that used to live in northern Arabia, okay? The Cushites and the Twa and the Ba'aka mixed here, okay? And words were left here and passed down, okay? Those words that were used as a common day language in the culture, Allah explained the deen through those words. And so those words, those African words, are in the Quran. And so when we understand those, then we can look back. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So there was 2 words, and I'm going to close out this. So remember I said the seen and the sheen at one time was one. Before it was Arabicized, the sheen and seen was just seen. And also the other one, the ha. You had the ha and you had the ha. Ha. Okay? So, when you go to the word haram, ha, it's sacred. It means sacred. And things can be haram because of the sacred of something. So, it's something that you don't do because something is sacred. Right? So, haram. But haram means sacred. The ha, the hard ha, also had a word named haram. Right? Haram means pyramid. Pyramid. The ha and the ha at one time, just like the sin and the sheen, used to be the same letter, the same word. Okay? So even in conception form, concept form, when you talk about haram or haram, if you go ancient enough, you understand that they interlock and they interphase into one word, which means pyramids that are sacred. And we know that certain prophets, when they are buried in certain places, that, the place is sacred. See? So when you go, my point in saying that is this. When you dig deep into the words, when you dig deep back into ancient, Islam, even before the Quran came, those sites, those pyramids and stuff were sacred. And we already know the rule that there was monotheists there. The monotheists there were those who worshiped fattah. And then there became some deviation interjected with the words, AMN and fattah and stuff like that, because some people were illiterate. So they had to go look up. They had to have that metaneta, or pictorials. They had to have those written because people were illiterate. They couldn't understand the writings of the priest. And the priest is what? A fattah. The priest of fattah, or those who had revelation language, was what? The Torah. Yeah. So these became known as the Sim, and hence the word Shem inside the Bible. And anybody from that lineage that was anointed to have knowledge of the revelations that come from the heavens, whether it be on the physical level or on the spiritual level. Alhamdulillah. So that's all for now. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless all of you. Or Allah grant us, increase us in knowledge. And inshallah, this benefited you. And inshallah, you can look these things up and, piece them together. I'll probably do a video, though, just so you can see from the Quran itself what ayahs I'm going to use and the hadiths, and then connect it into ancient forest hunter-gatherer history and agriculture history. Then you'll see it come together and understand on a better level what I'm trying to say, inshallah. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for listening. May Allah bless all of you and your family. And I got to go.